November, I'm trying to get out of it. Yeah. Send them all the people, let me see what I can wait. I will.
Learning how to read online. Sorry we're late. As we get here, set out. So I think we got, spending computer around, we got myself, Rodney, Charles, Fran, Robin, Rusty, and Ron, and Nate. Online we got, looks like we got Andrew Pike, Wendy from Minutes, Pat Gavin, Paul Poole, Laura, and Holly. Probably Wendy actually. So Becky Gavel will call to order and do the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Laura, as we get into this stage, we do important business for the people of the village of Rio. Fairness, wisdom, compassion, and understanding. Amen.
All right, everybody online here? Got the air conditioner going here, so we have to go turn it off. Let's see. First thing up is public comment. We have any public comment online. Okay. So jump right into the MedX presentation, not really a presentation, more a question and answer session. So Wendy, you're online, right?
You must pass.
You heard off here, so you can hear it. There we go. Now everybody should be able to hear you better. Are you there, Wendy?
I am.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yep, you can hear. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So I don't know how you want to do this. Do you want to just go over the report or have us just ask questions that we have, or?
Well, I'm not sure what you have in front of you. I did email you just the most recent report earlier today. There's a number of things, reports that go out each month. The income summary, claim status, we have patient names. I didn't include that for today. That's under the chart.
Yeah.
So, if you want to go through the income summary.
Sure. So anybody doesn't have it? I'm in my basement, I'm all for that. I did print out the reports that you sent today, Wendy. I didn't take enough copies for everybody, but I didn't print out.
I got the report
Okay.
from June, the end of June.
Yeah. I was just looking to see if she sent more up to date. Print out for you guys.
Should I have something more?
No, because it's all one report. This is all reports. So. All right, so yeah, go ahead and go through the income summary, I guess, and if you have questions, I'll pull a Fran. She sent in some questions.
Okay.
Now, we all have the copy from August through June. Is that what she's talking about?
Yes.
From when?
August through June?
Oh, last year.
Yeah, it's August 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2020.
Hey.
Fran's question were, so I guess a question that we, the board, in general have had in the past is checks that go directly to the patient from the insurance company and not through us. Is there any way to fix that?
Well, in those cases, it's usually something like Blue Cross or one of those. They're notorious for mailing checks to the patient. And the only way for them to mail directly to us or to you is if you accept assignment. And what that means is you accept to be paid at a lower rate, and that's typically the Medicare rate. So with any of my prior clients, it's been more beneficial for us to go after the patient to get the money and or put them in collections to get the money. Financially, you end up better off. So that's something, if it's chronic, we could look at to see how many received checks and mailed them in versus how many actually kept them.
Yeah, that would be helpful. Because, originally started asking questions after the March report. And at that time, there were 11 patients who received the check sent directly to them rather than to you. Which adds up.
Yeah. So it sounds like it's something we can look at, but maybe there's pros and cons both ways.
Well, it might be beneficial if they get the...
I mean, the best way to look at it is to let it go through the full cycle, and then you look at the financials in terms of how many, because we know the services that mail to the patients. So how many of those patients actually forwarded the check? Because you might find that what happens with the Blue, for example, they'll not only give you a fee schedule for just one plan, it's for any plans that they manage. So you would have to accept assignment on all those plans. And generally, they negotiate at Medicare rates.
Right, which is quite a bit lower than what we're getting right now.
Right. So we can look at that and see how it stands out financially.
Yeah, I guess, we're a year in now, so maybe we got some data we can look at that.
Well, if you look on page 3, the revenue from Medicare Advantage is $39,882. So that's what you're saying we would get from the Blue Cross and Blue Shield?
Yeah, so it would pay similar to any straight Medicare or Medicare Advantage plan, because the Medicare Advantage plans pay Medicare rate.
Right now,
Well, actually, there's two. There's Medicare and Medicare Advantage.
$400 claim with something in there.
right now in the report we got 93,000 from others/private, which I assume is regular health insurance. So some portion of that would be less, more in line with the Medicare rates.
So the receivables, anything past 30 days or 90 days, is that all private pay people or people who were sent a check and hadn't paid it back? I'm assuming Medicare, Medicaid, government, workers' comp, and other insurance are pretty prompt. Just because
Medicare generally pays around 30 days, 21 to 30 days. Medicaid takes around 60 days. And some of the private, take a lot longer. Some are 45. It depends. Depends on the claim, and VA takes about 6 months to pay.
So is it accurate to say the AR that's out to 90 days is highly likely to be collected still?
Yeah.
And
I
then
think that's still likely.
Yeah, so
And
I
what
guess,
you find that just for claims that, where we had to get insurance or wait for a questionnaire to come back with a signature, that's a month right there, that's if the patient mailed it back. So it stretches out the cycle time on those claims as well.
So out of the 198,000 shown as aged receivables, just right off the bat, like 126,000 of that is likely to be collected. So the unpaid amount is only, whatever the math works out to be, 70,000, which is less than and it's most likely non-insurance claims,
Right.
which is less than what I'm assuming is the category that we're kind of talking about of 93,000. So you've collected more than half of monies like this, it sounds like. Just to trying to piece it, put it in perspective as to what's going on.
seems like, so that kind of plays into one of Fran's other questions. I mean, it's on that page 4, which is the summary. I don't know if you have the report there in front of you, but it's receivables aging analysis. Basically, the open accounts, 0 to 30 days, 31 to 90 days, all those numbers.
Right.
Fran says,
At what point do you go to collection on?
oh, right. So, at what points do we, down this table, do we go to collections? I think the way we fill the form in, the only time to go to collections is when somebody receives a check from the insurance company and
Yeah.
does not give us the money.
Yeah, and they will have gotten 3 bills by then, and they'll get, if you're doing demand letters, I think you are, they'll get a demand letter like 10 days after the final notice that tells them they will be sent to collection, and then we forward it on to collection.
Okay. Now, I do have a question on this just so I can wrap my head around how it works. Let's say somebody's bill is, $1,000, and the insurance company gives them a check for $500. They send in the $500. Are we still sending them collections for the other $500?
If they send in the 500 and the balance is self-pay or co-pay, we send the number of bills that you've requested, and then we close it out. Unless you want to send everyone to collections, we don't send those people to collections.
No, I don't think that's the intent.
That was our choice not to do that.
Right. I mean, we're making our effort to collect the money with the bills.
So, if you go to back to page 2 at the bottom there, it says closed accounts, 41,219. Are those the ones where you've just given up on billing them?
Yeah, so that will be the ones that they've gotten all the required amount of bills that you wanted us to send, and they're either didn't respond or they are self-pay or co-pay, and so then we close those out.
Okay. So, is that,
Yeah, well, I mean, we do the mailing and we attempt to make phone calls to the patients as well, to try and get them to pay.
and I assume that is like, this report's August 1st through June 30th, so that's basically, fiscal year to date, that 41,219, right?
Yeah, that's out of 476,094. I mean, you've got, it's a fairly large number.
So I guess just
Total.
how medical billing works, and Wendy, correct me where I'm wrong. We have billed, just in this report I'm looking at, we've done 615 calls. We've billed $909,178. And then that gets adjusted because of insurance rates that are negotiated out of our control to 476,000. Of that 476,000, we've actually brought in the total revenue, which is 236,230. Am I correct until now?
so those adjusted amounts, you have no say over, because it's Medicare, Medicaid, Medicare Advantage. You legally can't collect those amounts.
Right.
So, it's really, in your case, like for that first fiscal year, there were a number of claims that, we did have the system, but we couldn't bill them because of when, the timing of when Medicare and Medicaid approved your application.
Right.
So early on, there were like 75 claims that they wouldn't pay because they wouldn't let us backdate that far.
Okay.
Okay, so of the 198,652 that's receivable, you're deducting the 41,219 out of that?
The 41,000
Page 2.
is close, that's the close amount you're saying?
Yeah.
Well, on page 2, it says total receivable, 198,652. And down below that is the closed accounts. So out of the 198, you deduct the 41, 291.
We'll do some math here.
Yeah, it should say what's open. There should be a number that, I don't have your exact report from me, but it should say open accounts and closed accounts. What's open is the actual receivable.
So
See that?
do you take, so if you take the revenue, the total revenue
Yeah, open accounts, right.
minus the closed accounts, do you get the total receivables?
198.
Is that how you work that? Just looking at that chart.
Page 2, you have the resident open accounts, and then the insured and other insured co-payment receivables.
Yeah. like you're-
Comes to 198,652. So you're deducting that 41,219 from that 198?
No, it's from the 236.
I know, but I mean as far as what's actually owed to us.
What's owed to us is the 198. Well,
Well, no, I think what Wendy said is that, Fran, you're right. So the 41,000 and the 198,000, those two add together to the 236.
No.
Or no, do
No.
No, they don't.
236 is what we've already received.
it's close, but not.
198 is what's open.
Oh, that's good. No,
And so that 41,219, does that get deducted from the 198?
So the way what Mike pointed out is the 476 is
Where it
everything.
says receivable, open account, that's what's open. And the only thing we did was we split it out to show you what was the self-pay receivable versus the co-pay receivable. That amount above is the receivable, open account, that's receivable.
Right.
So Fran, the 198 and the 41,000 are everything that's still owed. I think that the 41,000 is money that's still owed to the village,
Right.
which I think is what you're asking.
Okay, so the 198,652 is what we can still collect.
Is what
That's
Medex
what's-
believes is still collectible.
They're currently
Open
billing.
accounts still open.
Right.
Okay.
The other figure are
The
closed accounts.
41,000.
Well, it
They're not
doesn't show where
reflected
that
somewhere.
41,000
They're not reflected
deducted
somewhere.
from.
They're not reflected somewhere else.
They've given up billing those basically.
That number has been deemed sufficient.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, with closeness, we follow through on the number of bills, and it's not anybody that kept a check, so we close those out after they've gotten that number of bills.
Right.
So Wendy, can you give a guesstimate of that total open accounts, the 198,652 on the last page? Just because of the way this has been working and your knowledge of it, of what we might expect to collect of that
198.
198? You have a feel?
The best way for me to do that, because I have to look at the rest of what's open.
Yeah.
How I would do it is I would take a net billable and multiplied by around 70 to 75%. And that's what I would say you collect. Now, sometimes it's higher than that, sometimes it's lower, depending if you have more, Medicare or Medicaid. But the net billable is what I kind of measure against.
Okay.
Where we're at when we're 6 months past most of a fiscal year. That's about where we should be for that year.
Okay.
70 to 75% of the net billables,
Which
is
is,
what we should be looking at.
for this report we got here, is August 1st of last year through June 30th of this year. The net bill was $476,094.
Rusty,
So if you
that's,
want to be conservative, I use 70%, but it should fall in the neighborhood of 75%.
Okay.
Of the total
So
net
that's-
billable?
That's what we should expect to get.
Is that from the net
After all the
billable or the receivables?
That's what we should expect to have on our account after all the billing. If
That's from
everything
the-
sorts out.
Okay, wait, so that 75% is from the net billables?
yes.
Yes, the 476 number.
Yeah,
It's not from the receivables?
No,
But if we extrapolate that,
so it's like,
75% of the 476 net billables is around $360,000. If we extrapolate that, we've got 236 now, we need to get another $130 to get up to that 76, and that's around 70%, 75% of that 198. So
Right.
that extrapolates into that much onus we might get 70% of that last 198.
And if you look at the the 0 to 90 days AR, which is the stuff that's
Yeah.
most likely to be collected anyway, add those two together, that's
That's around
126,000,
around
which is
150.
right around where you're gonna.
right.
So if we're lucky, that our expectation through June would be to about $360,000
Right.
total. We'll see. And then, of course, another month of August.
yeah. Yes, that's correct.
Robin has a question. She's our, we know Robin.
Yeah.
So, we haven't had an actual year of correct numbers from the get-go.
No, because,
So, for us to predict anything in the future, we can't at this point because we lost so much of the Medicaid, we lost so much of the Medicare in the beginning, and how many people had kept those checks.
right.
Right there was a lost revenue of, as she pointed out, 75 people at however of a large amount. So I guess what I'm kind of trying to figure out, Wendy, is a better thought of where you think we'll be this coming next year.
Which is not what we're discussing.
I know, but it is there's a reason why I'm asking.
Sure.
You could figure, I don't know, if let's say they were all Medicaid, 75 claims, I would say they average around 150, 200 bucks a claim. And there's no copay, you can't bill the patient with those. So that's what I'd tack on.
Okay. Well, the only reason I brought that up, guys, is because when we put in these reports, when we send out the information for the billing, as Wendy knows, it goes as a basic call. It goes as an ALS1, ALS2. If you remember, we had the different costs.
That's on the front sheet of the report.
So I'm trying to get a general idea of where we're at in those particular areas helps us out, and you guys as well, and knowing what to per se expect.
On that front sheet, it shows us, just so everybody kind of becomes familiar with how to read the report, it shows us that we did 4 treat with no transport. We did no non-emergency, because we don't have to do that. We did 229 BLS emergency calls. And we did 331 ALS level 1 emergency calls, 2 ALS level 2 emergency calls, and 9 paramedic intercept calls. So So I guess that's how that breaks down to that sheet we filled out with the different
Yes.
prices, right?
Yeah, the only other difference is, of course, as you know, with the COVID, we were instructed
Right.
by the state not to take people unless they fit a criteria. So obviously that was lost revenue as a result of that holding us back from doing what's norm. So it's just to try and give you guys a little better idea of what the norm is or has been.
I guess just understand that.
I looked at your payer analysis, and the average return for your Medicaid is $203.
That's not
The
bad.
average return for Medicare is $440 for this year anyway.
That's not bad. Not bad at all.
I think we estimated less than that.
Yeah, we estimate about 300.
You always estimate lower.
That's the goal.
Because anything's a plus, word's a plus.
Well, yeah, I always try to be conservative until we really see what the numbers are that are coming in and the demographics that come in.
Right. Now, let's say we set that, I know we've had this question from the board before, and I'm just coming up with the side of my head. We set that chart with all the different amounts of what each one of these calls is worth. That chart gets used when there isn't a negotiated rate, right? Like, so Medicare, Medicaid, they pay us what they pay us. I assume other insurance companies have rates too, similar, right?
We fill out the full rates to everybody, and then for the ones that you have no choice with, Medicare again, Medicaid, they pay to their fee schedule every year. For the private, a lot of privates will pay the full amount less the co-pay or the deductible.
Okay. So that's where the chart comes in that we set.
Yes. Yeah.
When was that last?
And you always want to be at or
When we
above
sign up.
Medicare with your rate.
Yeah.
You should do that annually.
So maybe the lawyer has a good point. At what frequency should we update that rate schedule? Should it be like an annual thing?
You should do it annually, yes.
Okay.
I sent my husband intentionally with our ambulance because I wanted to see the billing, as I told you before. That gave me an idea of what the private pay is doing, okay? Because this Blue Cross Blue Shield is what I have. They paid all but the $10, which is our copay.
Okay.
So that told me right there that we can bring it up a little bit.
Well, we have some control there.
And they sent that check to you.
They sent the check to me and I signed it and sent it to the village like I was supposed to.
The village board reviewed the rates the last time MedX provided some information about what other,
Average numbers.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know, Wendy, if you could provide that same type of analysis again, or if the village just takes passive, boosting it by 40%.
You can look at cost of living and go by that, or you can look at, the rate samples and see where you are in terms of, are you at the minimum, the maximum, the average, that type of thing, because I put that on that chart. And then, what I would tell you is I'll give you the number of claims that are actually private payers, because it's only going to affect that population when you increase your rate. So you have a feel for that.
Yeah, no, it's all good information.
And we kind of want to charge the insurance companies whatever the insurance companies will pay.
Well, yeah.
The apples and oranges, there's more basic calls than there is ALS calls, so that might be the one you want
And I
to.
guess whatever the going rate is, we don't want to get stuck. I mean, a lot of our stuff here in the village for some reason has been set 30 years ago and never changed,
I recall when we did this rate setting here a year ago, we didn't make them as high as they might have been. We kept them down on everything, as you were saying, on purpose. So we absolutely need to look at this again.
Yeah.
So when are you gonna get us some
Yeah, in your
numbers?
first year, you started like the middle of June to claim.
Right.
So,
I would suggest the board roll it in as a normal practice as part of your budgeting process, because that's where the numbers will impact it anyway. So next year when you're doing your budget, just make it part of your budget workshop stuff. I mean, you could do it at any point, of course, but that just seems like a natural place for it to do.
Yeah, it's definitely a good spot to do it right before the budget or whatever, so you have a idea what's going on.
That's a fine
Well,
time to
that
do it,
would
but
be
this,
starting August 1st of this year.
Or we can do it in line with the fiscal year too, and then it's set for next year.
that would be a good way to go about it, but this year we would like to get some numbers. We may decide to do this here in the next week, 2 weeks, this month, September. So
We missed that
need some
budget
numbers.
time, but it is the first month of the fiscal year.
Well, and to Russ's point, you did want to get a year's worth of data to see just what was going on.
I can change your rates at any time, so I'm not,
Okay.
you know, I'm not bound by your fiscal year or the calendar year. If you want to change them mid-year, something's come up, you know, costs went way up on something, I can always change them.
Okay. I don't think we want to be bouncing them around, but yeah, it's a good thing to know
No.
that we're not locked into them.
Yeah. Right, we have some flexibility, like say if we didn't get it done by budget time, but we still want to affect it in pretty early in the budget year, we can do it.
Okay.
So who's gonna get us some numbers that are reflective of stuff? Is that something that Robin's gonna do, something that Wendy's gonna do, who's gonna?
So Wendy, can you send us what the averages are? Like that same worksheet you filled out initially with the average, you know, min, max,
Yeah,
kind of. All right.
yep, I can do that.
Perfect.
Wendy, are we comparable to, let's say, I know you work with Maine Ambulance, with them?
Are you careful with what?
To like what Maine Ambulance are, and other ambulance services, are we comparable in what we're asking?
They haven't asked I think they had a lot of changes there, with people. So they haven't gone through like a budget update, but randomly we'll get rate changes from, you know, various clients at different times, but Maine, I don't know the last time they've updated their rates or what their rates are off the top of my head.
Okay, that was just a comparison thought, because I run with Maine too, so,
Yeah,
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. Are those numbers that you have,
Mechanical.
the average numbers you have, are they statewide or are they like geographic region wide? Just thinking if you're factoring in like downstate into this and maybe throwing numbers out of whack or something.
I don't
if
remember.
you wanted it by region, I have to, I strip out all the other ones. I don't usually give client names for the rates.
Right.
I just, yeah, it's anonymous. So,
I would say as long as we know
most of my
that,
clients are New York. I have one in Colorado, so statewide for this. I think all the demographics are similar except for a couple of the cities that I built for.
right. So I'd say if you could strip out just the cities, just give us the, you know, similar to Owego kind of ones.
we don't need names, just like.
Yeah, we don't care about the names, just so we know we're getting a fair price, you know? Just name.
Yeah.
Like a place A, B, C, D, we don't care.
Just ready to know.
We just don't want to be comparing ourselves to Hudson Valley or something like that.
I mean, in some ways.
Right,
yeah.
right.
Right.
Yeah, I think some that are like large, close to city populations that are a little different.
We're gonna be different anyway because of our mileage. Our mileage is
Right.
further than cities or even Binghamton or Vestal. They're closer to the hospitals.
Right.
So our mileage money is more by considerable than theirs.
That is one thing, I don't get many calls about EMS bills. When I get a call, it's, oh my God, you guys charge whatever it is, $20 a mile or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maintenance of the vehicle.
Well, and a lot of times cities will have them charge a much higher mileage to make up for it because they only average 3 miles a call.
Right.
And it's typical. Whereas I have one client, he does pretty much only long distance transport. So he averages, 70 to 100 miles a trip.
Yeah. Yeah, we're probably in the 30 range, 20 to 30.
We're usually 22, 23 is where our average distance is every time we go.
And I try to explain to them it's because we only charge mileage one direction.
Right.
We gotta get there and get back, so.
Well, it's not the gas, it's not just the gas, it's the repair of the vehicle.
Right. Not your average car you're taking.
Tires.
Figured that out pretty quick. All right, does anybody else have any questions for Wendy from Medics?
Well, the one question I have is their billing of the fee to the village. That's not listed on this,
Oh, right.
these 4 pages, is it?
It is not.
So can you explain, Wendy, we know we pay you a certain percentage.
10%?
Medicare, Medicaid, I think we pay you a flat rate. How does that
Yeah,
work?
Medicaid is flat rate.
Like, so you pay us the full, I mean, I know this has been some confusion, like, you give us the full amount of money and then bill us for that service, basically, instead of just taking that off the top, right?
Yeah, I don't get any checks in my name.
What is Medic's bill, the village?
No, we always bill it out to insurance companies with the provider's name on it. So the money comes, this participation, we always say they pay the bill to, village legal. So we don't get any money in the Medic's name.
Okay.
And so we deposit it, and what I do is we track the monthly deposits. So, like for this week, for example, I'm going to look at July deposits, add them up, then I'm going to deduct Medicaid revenue from that